The story actually kind of starts in 1993. My grandfather used to run a 150 square feet men's retail store in AC Market, Kolkata. What his philosophy always has been with this company as well is, we are here only to ensure that the guest leaves with a smile. That's the product we're selling. Everything else is supplementary. So my dad always wanted to introduce kurtas in the store. One religious trip that my grandfather was going for, and my dad decided to buy 100 kurtas, bring it to the store and see what happens. And when my grandfather came back, he was really angry. But then he realized that 90 out of the 100 kurtas had already been sold in the 2 weeks where he was not there. Wow. That's when he also saw that, oh wow, there's an opportunity.
Manyavar. दिवाली वाली feeling तो कुर्ते में ही आती है. Manyavar.
The best opportunity I had in life is that my dad has been very supportive. As a child, every single day we've discussed business for 2 hours.
What is the international focus for the brand?
We have about 16 stores across US, UK, UAE, Canada, and we've sort of seen Indians globally celebrate Indian festivals more than Indians in India do. And that's just crazy. Like they celebrate everything. When you are dressed in Western, you can still be in the celebration mode if everyone else is in Indian. You dress in Indian not for yourself but for others to ensure that they feel the celebration.
What are your learnings for more younger people starting today? Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of the Zerodha Media Network. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host Jivraj, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. Join me in welcoming Vedant Modi, who is the Chief Revenue Officer of Manyavar, also known as Vedant Fashions Limited. Thank you so much, Vedant, for joining me. Super delighted to be hosting you.
Thank you very much for having me. Really excited to, kind of chat about different things happening in retail and, just discussing.
No, I'm very excited to do this because I've had the pleasure of knowing you the last couple of quarters and we met here and there.
I like how we were friends and now you're saying last couple of quarters.
Exactly. I went into podcast mode very fast. But no, every time I've met you, I have learned so much and I've always been curious, throwing questions at you. Even when we were chilling, I remember at 2 a.m. also, I was bothering you and you were very kind to answer. But I want to bring out all of those things here because wow, I think what you folks have built as a company is just so fascinating, right? Like market leader in the space, stands for like fashion, celebrations, wedding wear, undoubtedly like the best in class there is. Manyavar is a household name now. So I want to uncover all of that through this podcast and go deeper in your mind. The first question I want to start off with is interesting, right? Like you, of course, come in as a second generation entrepreneur, leading this legacy and growing the company to newer heights. What does this challenge mean for you? Talk to us about when you came into the business. What was it like then and how far you've come?
I think that's a very interesting question. I think what came in very easy for me, to be very honest, is or the best opportunity I had in life is that my dad has been very supportive. And I think as a child, we've had a policy or a tradition almost. Every day, every single day, we've discussed business for 2 hours.
Wow.
And I'm saying maybe I was 3, 4, 5. Maybe I wasn't speaking. He was just talking to me.
Yeah.
It was like, he would just come home and talk about things he's done. So I think that's been the biggest blessing in life in terms of business, at least, that even as a toddler, he would just come and talk business to me. Even if it didn't make sense to me, he would just talk about the things he's done, and taking in all those learnings from those days have been the most helpful now. At the same time, I've been a single child and both my parents have been involved from the very beginning. And the initial years of hustle are crazy, like you could imagine. So 1999 to 2008 was like phenomenal years of growth and also tireless hours put in by them. So my daily routine also was, right after school, going to the office because that's where I chilled. If I had to do anything to do with studies, it would be in the office. So I think I was around everyone since a very early age. So with a lot of my friends who are also second generation entrepreneurs, when they walk in as a salaried employee, let's say, for them, it's a new journey.
Yeah.
For me, it was like a continuation of my journey. But this time, unlike before, I was responsible for a lot of people and I had a lot of responsibilities on my head. So I think that pressure definitely was there. But I never felt any discomfort walking in about 3-4 years ago now. So that journey has been very smooth. And my dad has also been, very playful in terms of certain things in my childhood. So let's say if I want to buy something, it was linked to sales of the store near our house.
Oh, wow.
So I was responsible for managing that store. And the whole idea was, okay, if this store touches this X number, then you can go and buy this Nintendo that you wanted to buy. So that was very interesting and, like a game almost. So even that, I think we've discussed, I went to boarding school outside India. So the reason I actually went out is because in class 10, right before my board exams, I had a certain target for this particular store. And this was March, end of financial year. So trying to meet that target, I was so involved that I wasn't really caring about the exams. So my mom got really pissed. She's like, listen, you got to finish your education. And that's when the conclusion came that I should go out of India for a couple of years before finally coming back and getting in the business properly.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's super fascinating. I think it goes to show. I think I've never spoken to you and come out thinking you've only been in the business for like some years. And I mean, I'm not even as experienced, right? But your like depth shows every time I talk to you. But talk to us, maybe take a step back. Like, how did Manyavar get started? Like, what are the stories that you remember further of starting? And, now we see the rosy picture. It's a listed entity, very large scale. Of course, we'll talk about many of those things. But what is the deeper lens to saying that, okay, this is why it started. And this was the initial, like, I don't want to say struggle, but what was the early days like?
So, the story actually kind of starts in 1993.
Okay.
So at this point of time, my dad, Mr. Revenue Modi, is 13 years old. And my grandfather used to run a 150 square feet men's retail store in AC Market, Kolkata. Back then, wildly famous. Like this was the shopping mall. Like the billionaires back then used to come to AC Market to shop. Oh, wow. It was the talk of the town or maybe even talk of the country.
Nice.
So that
what
was
it called?
AC Market. It's on Theatre Road. I'm sure you'd have, you've
so
been
AC
there.
Market was your grandfather's?
No, we had a small 150 square feet retail store there.
Okay, perfect.
So this store used to sell men's ready-made apparel. And back in those days, when my dad was 13, he started going to the store every single day after school. So from the age of 13 till 21, he would have personally dealt with 100,000 consumers.
Oh, wow.
Now, some basic learnings that came during his tenure at, that store. One is that the consumers walking in, or as we call it, the guests walking in, want service and they want right product at the right price. But what he started to realize, what was happening in a lot of times is that the fashion advisors that we had at the store, or salesmen as we call them, used to judge the consumer before they even walk in. That this customer is only going to buy one shirt and leave. This customer is here just for a pant. So I think one of those learnings were big, that, don't judge a consumer. You need to service them in and out. Even if you think they are not here to buy anything, you still have to service them. And what his philosophy always has been with this company as well is, we are here only to ensure that the guest leaves with a smile. That's the product we're selling. Everything else is supplementary. If we are able to sell the smile, products will automatically be a part of that. So that's the sort of consumer ethos we've built the company on. So sort of moving back, we kind of got sidetracked.
Sure. No. This is very, very interesting. Yeah. I love how, by the way, the small things matter, right? So you just said like guests instead of customers and fashion advisor instead of salesmen. That's such a interesting thing. But yeah, I'm also looking for how, Manyavar got started. I know you mentioned the story over dinner to me, but I really want to hear that story from you on the podcast.
So like I was mentioning, almost 9 years in the store, 8-9 years in the store. And things were going smooth. And I think at this point of time, this is what he was thinking he was going to do. And there was this one day where my dad got into an argument with my grandfather about this one thing about the store. And he decided to never go back to the store again. So came back home, took 10,000 rupees from my grandmother and decided he wants to do something in the Indian fashion space. Now, there's again a micro story linked to this as well.
Tell us.
So the store that my dad and my grandfather used to run used to majorly sell, all sorts of men's ready-made garments.
Okay.
But we didn't sell kurtas at that point of time.
Interesting.
So my dad always wanted to introduce kurtas in the store. So there was this one, trip, religious trip that my grandfather was going for. I think this was a 1 or 2 week trip. And my dad decided to buy 100 kurtas, bring it to the store and see what happens. While my grandfather was gone, he took, hold of this opportunity. And when my grandfather came back, he was really angry. He was like, how could you have bought when I said no? But then he realized that 90 out of the 100 kurtas had already been sold in the 2 weeks where he was not there.
Wow.
That's when he also saw that, oh wow, there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then with time, my dad really thought, that this Indian space is so big, but just because there is no one who's able to get the product at the right price, at the right place, at the right time. So the gap was huge. And this industry overall had become a very aristocratic, sort of industry. If you had to buy a sherwani, you had to go to a tailor, you had to choose a fancy fabric. It was not affordable.
Yeah.
Most of the generation above us, like our parents, our grandparents, would have probably gotten married wearing suits. And that's simply because they couldn't afford sherwanis. On top of the colonial hangover we had. But that's one of the major reasons.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And that gave birth to Manyavar. And he decided to now start an exclusive ethnic wear.
So he decided
Inside kurtas.
He said, I am going to do something in the Indian wear space.
Nice.
Took 10,000 rupees from my grandmother. I think one big learning, as the story progresses is also today you look at people raising so much money. But Manyavar has been built on 10,000 rupees of bootstrapped cash. That's about it.
That's crazy.
And that's literally what was put in the business for many, many years. And it's always fueled its growth on its own.
On its profitability.
Yeah. So with the whole thought of now making men's Indian wear, the next big question was, what should the brand name be? So he thought, what's the most important thing in his life? It was to earn some respect for himself. And that's where the name Manyavar comes from. So no fancy marketing agency, nothing. It's just from the heart, from the soul. We want to build a company, a brand, which truly means what it stands for, which is being a Manyavar, which is standing for the tradition, standing for the respect and culture values that India has to offer.
I love that. And it's amazing how far you've come, right? Like that 10,000 rupees to like multiple thousand crores of market cap, revenue, scale, all of that. In fact, to take a step forward and understand the size of the business, it's just helpful to understand where we are today. So if you can give us an estimate, like I've of course done my numbers, like 600 plus brand outlets, you sell exclusively, like 92% of your revenue comes from EBOs. So it's you're 10% of the overall market. So I understand that you're leading, but where are we, just for context to the audience? That would be really helpful to know. Then we'll go slice and dice different parts of the business.
Sure. So we're about 650 plus exclusive stores. We do almost close to 2,000 crores customer revenue as a company. Very profitable. And, I think most importantly, we do the highest units in men's Indian wear. And by far. So I think the gap also that we've created is very decent. And the big reason behind this is the overall understanding of consumer preferences. So if you look at India as a country, our culture, our religions, our languages change every 50 kilometers. Yeah. Now, Indian wear is not a taste that was brought by, the Westerners. It's something that was built on its own, and every cultural identity has its own demands. So what we were able to learn grounds up is we understand exactly in which town, in which city, at a pin code level across India, what consumers prefer. And our design team curates collections particular for that pin code, and we are able to supply it for those particular stores. How we differ from others is in Western fashion, for example, it's you do a collection and that's for the entire country. But we have to do many collections for each pin code. And that is why no one has really been able to replicate this at a national level, because it's just so complex. Building product is difficult. What to make is crazy difficult.
Yeah.
So these are big moats and big learnings that we've been able to accumulate over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. Let's double click on that customer preferences bit, right? Like Manyavar stands at the center of celebrations in the country. If you had to distill for us what a customer looks for when they're going ahead and, buying this very important piece of cloth that represents so much of their personality on one of their most important days in their lives, what is it that they're looking for? And then in turn, how do you backwards calculate how you bring them joy, right? Like, and where does that like show? So I'm sure it shows in the design, but then in the stores, right? How does it get made, etc.? I'd love to know that.
Actually, it's a very complex question because wedding is not an individual choice today in India or the wedding clothes that you wear.
Sure.
It's a decision. Let's say if we're talking about the groom, to be honest, is just there for the validation and the verification that he's comfortable wearing this. Now, talking about the influencers, the mother wants to ensure that the color is right according to the auspiciousness of the ritual. The fiance is the one who's really, kind of looking at the fashion sense today. The sister has some role to play along with the fiance in this whole equation. So it's like, there are multiple people walking in for the same product, and we have to ensure that the product, the store experience, and the overall journey that was created speaks to all of them individually. So it's not really a straightforward question if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like one direct answer because there's so many options.
Yeah.
But I was just hoping, if we break it down to, let's say, what matters more, let's say design, price, the experience, the number of options. If you had to break it down into like considerations from a customer lens, right? What would that look like?
So in weddings in general, if you look at it, even in a lot of podcasts, I've heard how they describe India 1, India 2, India 3, right?
Yes.
Now the interesting thing is India 2 starts to behave like India 1.
For weddings.
Because they have saved up so many years of their life for this one big moment. This is their moment to shine. So price as a barrier is a lot lower in this category versus other discretionary categories.
Fair.
What it boils down to is it really speaking to the person's personality or the family's personality? And is the person really feeling comfortable in the outfit that they're wearing? That, on top of that, the validation of having a branded outfit.
That it represents something.
The person might have worn unorganized, sort of clothes all his life made by the unorganized industry. But this is one day where he wants to wear a branded product, where he wants the aspirational value. He wants to put on something and feel special about it. He doesn't want anything to go wrong with his outfit on that day.
Sure.
So there are so many pieces that come in together to, speak the story of the right product for that right moment is interesting.
That's super helpful because I think what I'm catching there is aspirational value, right? Now, Manyavar stands for this, go-to place where I need this aspiration from and where I know I will find a lot of optionality. On aspiration itself, what have been the learnings to say that now, of course, brands take decades to build and that's an example. But how do you keep up with trends, with changing times, with changing consumer preferences, with changing seasons? What is the, internal mantra to saying that, okay, this is how we will stay top of mind as well as aspirational in terms of the brand we build?
See, the root cause of it is having dynamic people internally.
Sure.
I think what we look for in our people is having a very open mind that allows you to be dynamic in thought. So if we look at marketing, for example, print and outdoors used to be a big, sort of area of spending for us. Now a lot of that has transitioned to digital. We've worked a lot on things like SEO, for example, a lot on blogs. So that transition only happens if you have a dynamic team, an open mindset.
Sure.
So I think at the root cause of it, that's the most important thing. With trends, given the kind of infrastructure we've built across India, we understand exactly how people are changing their tastes in the minutest of colors also. So let's say back in the day, cream was famous. Today it's ivory. To most men it might look the same, but there's a psychological nuance to it on how cool you perceive the color to be and how even the blue is progressing year on year. So there's a whole science to it where we track both our internal data. We have teams tracking what's happening internationally across the board with the design trends moving, with colors moving. And then we try to see what would be the Manyavar way of representing it. So that's how trends, sort of come. And on top of that, with marketing, I think our insights have been very personal. So when we make ads like Shaadi ka kharcha aadha aadha or Jab aap taiyar, hum taiyar, those insights are very personal. When you have a research company working for you and giving you insights, I don't think it works. I think they're built for B2B industrial companies. I don't think research companies have ever been set up for D2C companies.
Tell us more.
I think we've spent a lot of money on research over the years. The fact is,
Doesn't work.
I don't think I've learned even 1% from those reports. The learning has been that large consumer research just don't work.
Yeah.
I don't think that they've brought insight to us in any way possible. The truest insights have been speaking to consumers and spending a lot of time in stores and also, kind of going to weddings. So I have a couple of friends who own hotels and banquets. So I've not done it much, but twice or thrice, I've just entered weddings of different cultures, which I would never get to attend, just to get a feeling of it. Those have given me so much insight.
I love that.
So
Give us an example. Like, what does it mean to, observe? Like, not even a wedding. Like, when you're at your store, what are you essentially observing from a customer point of view?
the whole perspective here is not just customer actually, or not just a guest, but I'm also trying to find where does our fashion advisor, can gain efficiency. So it's not just about the guest, it's about everyone. The way we look at it is we are here as custodians of the brand to, number one, improve the experience for our guests. Number two, improve the experience for all our partners. So people working for us at the back end, at the front end. And number three, improving experience for all our employees. If we improve experience in today's day and age, everything else will fall in place is how we kind of treat it. So when we look at guest experience, some insights have been very straightforward. बोलना था मुझे, but it's a little confidential.
That's fine.
Yeah. Actually, I'll, kind of tell you something back in the day. Omni-channel and phygital have become huge buzzwords today, right? Everyone
Correct.
talks about it.
Yes.
But the craziest thing is that this was developed by our IT team back in 2009. And this entire insight came from our team members spending time at the stores. That this guest wants this particular piece in this size, this store doesn't have it. But the store 5-6 kilometers from here does have it in stock.
Sure.
So what do we do about this? It was simple insight, right? So we started off within 24 hours. I think we created this Excel sheet that was updated at night with stock of every single store. So someone just had to do a Control F and find out where this piece is. Sure. And then you call and you request for this piece. And then within 3 months, we developed our own omni-channel technology. A store would just have to go in, request for that product, they would get the delivery time and it would get delivered to them.
Wow.
So this has been with us since 2009. And a few insights here is, number one, you should implement something as fast as possible rather than trying to perfect it. So if you can get it to 80% level, just do it.
Sure.
And the second big, thought process with this tech that we had is, we built that omnichannel technology for some 14 lakh rupees back then. For us, it was really expensive. But in 2016, 2017, when companies started building their own omnichannel products,
You would have taken crores.
I mean, they were charging crores for us to use it. I mean, of course, we had our own, so we didn't have to. But
Yeah.
when we asked them, how much did you spend on building this? They had spent like 130, 140 crores.
Wow.
So there are also such crazy examples where if you build tech efficiently, it doesn't really cost that much. It's just you have to have the right mindset for it.
Sure. Now I want to double click on so many things, but since we are broadly on the subject of aspiration and marketing, one thing Manyavar, of course, does really well is associate itself to like these large, aspirational figures, which are, let's say, actors, right? Like Amitabh Bachchan, Alia Bhatt, Kiara Advani, the list goes on. We're also in a world where so many of us now relate to, let's say, content creators, new age figures as well, right? How do you look at these two worlds? Like what works at your level and how effective are some of these campaigns with large scale actors? What does that do to the brand?
See, I think in today's day, you can't do one without the other.
Sure.
I think the creator economy is something which is a must. And if you can afford celebrities, maybe.
Sure.
So I would rather say it's the other way around today. What celebrities do for your brand is bring that level of trust, bring a certain aura of theirs to the brand. And like I mentioned, Manyavar, especially for grooms, is this one big purchase. They want to feel like they're a Bollywood actor. They want to feel like Virat Kohli after hitting a six.
Yeah.
That's the feeling they're looking for. They want to celebrate the way an actor or a cricketer does.
Yeah.
So it's that feeling that you associate yourself with. And when it comes to the creator economy, they're amazing, especially when you have to go local. I don't think anyone can do as good a job as creators in that particular market, in that particular region can sort of help you build that reach.
Sure. You also use some of these actors and local sort of celebrities for some of your retail launches, right? Like, how does that impact? I'm just trying to understand because most of my interactions are with startup founders who may not be able to take either the kind of capital risk that it involves to have celebrities or even think at that scale, right? Because you're more micro focused, you're still growing, you're on a different trajectory. You, of course, are at a different scale. So to understand that POV will be very interesting. Like, in which avenues do you use it? Is it also like outside in the opinion is ROI, how does it get justified, right? Because I'm sure these people cost a lot. So how can you maybe elaborate on some of these things?
It's very interesting that you talk about celebrities. And it's really about understanding the talent market, understanding what's happening in the industry. And people today don't want, brands or celebrities to just sell something. It has to be more personal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't add up in today's day and age. So I'll give you an example of our brand Mohe. So we started with Anushka Sharma as our brand ambassador. Then we moved to Alia Bhatt. Then we moved to Kiara Advani. And just yesterday, we've launched with Janhvi Kapoor. And in the meanwhile, we also had Sobita for a while in the middle, along with Kiara. Now, after launching Anushka, within a year, she got married. After we launched Alia, within 1.5 years, she got married. After we launched Kiara, within a few months, she got married.
Wow.
And after we got with Sobita, again, within a year, she got married. Now this...
So is Janhvi Kapoor getting married in a year?
I don't have the answer for that. But there is a certain sense of educated guess that if we pick the right person who's in the marriageable age and if they get married, that immediately increases the recall for a bridal wear brand.
Absolutely.
Now that understanding has to be there, and that is how you get the true ROI. If you just put a Kiara Advani in front and say that ये लहंगा है या अच्छा लहंगा है आप खरीद लो, it does not work. But if it connects with moments from her personal life in the smallest way possible also, that campaign will give you huge ROI. So if you check the reels of the collabs that they've done with us and posted, the films that we've launched, they by far are one of the largest views and largest engagement ads that they've ever posted.
Wow.
And all these celebs have like a lot of brands that they work with. So I think that's one thing which we've learned is try to connect with what's happening in the real world.
That's lovely. I think that's a very, very strong insight. I'm also like, now trying to understand that, okay, this is how I recall ads and this is what works. But it's super nice to hear. One of the interesting pieces is that in the overall market, and I'd love to know your thoughts here, it seems like the women ethnic wear, Indian wear, wedding wear market is the larger pie. And you've, of course, now been concentrated with Manyavar as the leader in the menswear market. Now you have two other brands, Mohe and Twamev. You're launching both of them. Talk to us about how, as a company, you're looking at the expansion strategy, because it's been super interesting to see how since IPO also you've grown so significantly. The numbers show, I think, 25-30% year-on-year growth, if I'm not wrong. So it'll be lovely to understand how you are thinking 10 years hence, because you've seen, of course, the family build it out, but in the last 3-4 years, you've spearheaded so much. What does this look like in the future?
So, I mean, we have a very clear strategy about the company wanting to represent the Indian culture and Indian values globally. And that, when you translate into business, means straddling at different price points and at different categories of Indian wear that we want to, kind of go after over the course of 10-15 years. So Manyavar has been our offering for the mid-premium celebration wear for men's. Mohe has been there from about 2016, and that caters to the women's celebration wear industry, again in the mid-premium space. And what we've been doing with Mohe is we've launched the brand in 180 of our Manyavar Mohe stores. So distribution is key with Mohe first, to getting it out to the consumers to ensure that all guests have access to this brand. With Twamev, we saw a large gap in the bridge to luxury segment. Now today, when you look at all the designer wear brands, women aspire to buy them, but they are really unaffordable for most. For 99.8% of India, it's unaffordable. So that is where Twamev steps in for a lot of those high aspirational women, giving them the similar designer products in our own design sense, which comes from all the scientific learnings of what works where in India at relatively decent prices. So given the brand offerings that we've put in place, it's going to be a great growth trajectory from here on. But at the same time, I'll sort of tell you now, because I assume by the time this podcast goes out, the brand will already be been launched. Sure. So we're launching Divas by Manyavar,
Lovely.
Which is going to be our new festive offering. In India, there are almost 70 crore men. And there are 50 festivals we celebrate as a country that are relatively large. And per person, there are 4 to 5 festivals that are celebrated. Now, our understanding is most of India is still not getting dressed in Indian wear for the festivals that even they celebrate.
Sure.
And the whole proposition of Divas is to ensure that everyone is adorning a Indian wear outfit while celebrating anything cultural, anything religious. And I'll tell you, just also to all the viewers out there, just close your eyes. Imagine a Diwali with everyone wearing t-shirt, pants, shirt, jeans. Like you can't imagine Diwali like that.
Yeah.
Same way, imagine a big puja at home. You can't be wearing shirt, pant. I'll tell you for a fact, I love going to work every day because majority of the people in our office wear Indian wear.
I love that. And you wear it every day as well.
I wear it every day. So at work, there is a certain sense of joy, a certain sense of celebration at every moment. and it just creates so much positivity that just sort of improves everyone's productivity.
That's commendable. I think your just broad explanation of the overall pieces are very strong. But this is going to be a mass category then. Like, what do you mean
Yes.
by festive?
By festive, what we mean is we want to ensure the entire mission of this brand is to ensure that every man of India is able to dress in Indian wear for the respective festivals that they celebrate. So what we will do from a design perspective is ensure that every festival has its own collection and offering. And we've also done more Gen Z related aspects with this brand, which you will soon see. And also the idea is that we want people to truly celebrate. And I genuinely feel if you're not dressed in Indian, you're not part of the celebration in some way, just because that feeling can't come from within.
Sure. That's super interesting.
And I'll also share another insight for you. Actually, I kind of said this wrong. When you are dressed in Western, you can still be in the celebration mode if everyone else is in Indian. You dress in Indian not for yourself, but for others to ensure that they feel the celebration. They feel that you are helping them be a part of the celebration.
Yeah. It's about including in the celebration and being
Correct.
celebrated.
Correct.
Oh, I love that. On the piece of, let's say, you have multiple price points now and multiple brands. How do you internally think about maybe prioritizing some of this, right? Because one could say that, hey, you're at 10% market share, you can still significantly grow with Manyavar itself. But you're doing all of these different things as well, and it feels like a lot is happening. How do you internally segregate what's more important versus less important?
I think we've discussed this before as well in one of our dinners. The most important metric for me is ROTI. So what I mean by ROTI is return on time invested. And because of a huge focus on this metric and improving this year on year, what has happened is that majority of the tasks where senior management is not involved is completely automated. So bandwidth is never a challenge when it comes to doing newer things.
Okay.
Because things that take time is automated either in the form of process, tech, or a team of people which know what they have to do. So we as senior management can really focus on ensuring we are out there in creating the newer brands, newer segments, newer experiences. So none of us, kind of invest time in what has already been happening. We automate it and move on to doing something new. So I think that's the way of doing this. So the way I look at it is that Manyavar's growth will continue to happen even if we are focusing on building Twamev or building Mohe.
Fair.
And when Manyavar needs something, then we are on top of it, of course. Yeah.
Got it. That's super interesting, but I love the expansion plans. It goes to show that, like many could say that as a 20-year-old company and more actually, you are now the incumbent, right? And other companies which will innovate faster are out to perhaps get you in a way. But how do you innovate as the incumbent and look like 10, 15 years hence is the thing I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts there, like beyond expansion? Like how do you stay on top of, let's say, innovation, right? Like how do you get a pulse? How do you not behave like a large old company?
I think this kind of boils down to the culture you have in the company. One thing which I think we are extremely proud of is not having a very corporate-y culture. It's an open door policy. I would directly meet someone who's, let's say 4 levels down my reporting structure, if that is the work that they do, and all the ideas flow into us. We have a lot of young talent in the middle management also. And all of those ideas flow in directly to the MD as well. We have an innovation group within the company that is solely focused on innovating and ensuring we are on top of any innovation we could do. So to give you an example, we have innovated an app. So this training app is in the hands of every fashion advisor that we have. And it's not like a training app where everyone gets trained on the same things every day. Our system, our algorithms automatically understand what this person needs to be trained on basis let's say Google ratings being fluctuating in that particular store, basis, let's say, how we track our footfalls and conversions. And that training is automatic in terms of what they should be trained on. The second thing is, I feel we have a relatively open culture, and that just helps in ideas flowing and a very, very, very progressive thought progress. So we are, as a young leader, I would say, I get a lot of crazy ideas from my team, and I'm sometimes surprised that the board and the management approves them. So we're free to try what we want. One thing which is very close though is, if you fail, you and your team must be the first one to come out and say that yes, we failed with this project. This is why we failed, and this is how we'll not fail next time. Failure is completely acceptable. What I have realized is not good is when you fail and you try to hide it. That blocks your growth and also kind of creates a lot of problems further down.
Sure. That's super, super interesting. I think with every answer, I'm realizing that there's a lot of nuance to it. Quickly double clicking. One of the things, Vedant, that, of course, is in the Manyavar journey is that it was a family run business. And then, you went IPO and now you have this public responsibility. You are a second gen entrepreneur. How did the shift of, let's say, in the mind of, let's say, outside in, family run businesses can be more like, and we associate words which usually go with slow and non-innovative, maybe not very fast, etc. Now you of course have this scale. I think I read somewhere 5,000 employees, if I'm not wrong. You're also headquartered in Kolkata. Talent, at least outside in, again looking, is very difficult to grab here. How do you manage all of this? And then you have the retail side talent as well, right? Your fashion advisors, which might be, if you can get us a sense of numbers and then change in management style, etc. And since you've come to the forefront of the business, how has that further evolved? I'd love to hear nuances on that.
I'll kind of take the first part, which is around governance. I think so the company was founded in 99. By 2002 we were probably some 3-4 crores of turnover. And it's crazy that we've actually had our ERP system since then.
Oh, wow.
So since 2002, we've done no supply chain work on paper. We've done no accounting work on paper. Every single thing has been through our ERP. In Calcutta, we might be the only company that's had a Big Four auditor for almost 14 years, 10 years of which we were 100% owners. There was no outside investor. So almost 8-9 years, even before the Kedara deal, we've had a Big Four auditor. Wow. So our governance structures have been really tight and strong from very early days.
And where does this come from? Was your dad just always very disciplined about these things? Was it in the blood? How do you think, where does this come from?
My dad has always thought that anything that makes you not think about growth and takes away from that mindset is not good for you to have. So that's the first piece. And more importantly, he is... we don't run this company to make money. We run this company to make India proud, to ensure that India grows and the heritage of this country spreads to the world. And anything to do going against that phenomena would have, never crossed anyone's minds as well. So that's the bigger part. And of course, anything... So when you think about saving taxes and all those topics, that's basically going micro and not thinking about the larger picture. Yeah. And again, so for us, it's more about making the country proud, but more importantly, staying true and focused on growth.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, I deviated you. So back to the, team question. I would love that. You mentioned governance taken care of. And I love that. I think the lesson there is, even if you're starting small, even if nobody's looking, you have to get your foundation. I love that. What about the rest of the team? How's that evolved over a period of time? How do you manage scale?
I mean, the interesting thing here is majority of our senior management, middle management talent is all grown in-house. Majority of them. So and that's the beauty of it, that the culture remains so strong and intact because of these reasons. And plus, to be very honest with you, it's very hard hiring from outside. Yeah. especially in an industry like ours, where no one is doing what we're doing in terms of supply chain, in terms of marketing. It's a real struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been very happy to find some senior management talent from outside, but that has taken years of effort of getting the right person in.
Sure. Is there anything specific, also as a, younger person in the ecosystem, when you're hiring senior talent, I'm sure like you find skilled people, but then it boils down to like some amount of like value alignment and you have to test it within a couple of interviews, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like, I mean, how many deeper conversations can you have after all? What is your process to identify great talent at the senior level?
I think
Especially
it's
at
just,
your scale.
I think it's just spending a lot of time with them. I think it's not a couple of interviews, it's spending a couple of
Hours.
days.
Oh, wow.
By days, I mean, let's say you meet at
Yeah.
10 a.m., go until 6, 7 p.m. and do at least 3, 4 of those to truly understand what the person feels.
Are there
Because
any interesting stories that come to mind? Like when you were trying to hire somebody that you really liked and then, something negative came out, or the opposite?
I think nothing too dramatic, to be honest. I've made mistakes for sure. I mean, when I had just joined the company and I was building my team, especially with digital, because talent is so hard to find, I think I've definitely made mistakes in just trying to get someone in rather than getting the right person in. And I think those learnings have definitely taught me that having the wrong person in the team is way worse than having no one in the team. And I think that has relaxed me and I'm just more focused. I'll do more interviews. I'll meet more people. I'll spend a lot more time with them and ensure we get the right person in. So I think that has been the biggest learning.
Lovely. No, this has been super interesting. Coming back to the business, I think your business is also very unique from a lens that I'm usually used to talking to people who build brands like more on the internet, right? Digitally.
Yeah.
Your business, 92% of your revenue comes from your retail stores,
Correct.
right? Talk to us about, in a world where everybody's talking that retail is eventually the place that you have to go, you're living it. What have been your learnings from a retail expansion standpoint, right? Like what works, what does not, how much of like having the store in the right place works versus, size of stores, etc. I'd love all nuances on that front because as a young founder watching you, I'd love to understand, let's say, if I have to build a retail first company, how do I do that?
I think the most important thing, I think let's break it down into the 4 P's of marketing, right? That's how retail works as well.
Okay.
So the first is the place.
Yes.
You have to ensure your store is being noticed by people. In retail, to be very honest with you, you can open a store at a really good location, spend zero money on marketing and still make a killing out of it. That's the beauty of retail and having the store at the right place.
Sure.
The second is ensuring you have the right service in the store and the right people, depending on the kind of retail you're doing.
Sure.
Now, most importantly, the product and the price. So that is everything. If you get people in and you're not able to convert them, you will never be able to make a business out of it. So you need to ensure that you have the right product at the right time for the right people of that area that you're servicing. And finally, some level of promotion that is required to ensure people are walking into the store, which I feel if you have the right store, you don't need too much.
Automatically. Yeah.
Correct. And then to make money, there's a whole different set of equation. This is just to make revenue. But to make money, you have to ensure debt stock is very low. And that's where most retailers, kind of fundamentally lose a lot of money that they could have made. That's because there's not a lot of science to what the consumer likes, but rather what the buying team likes.
Yeah.
So that's
you don't get that right.
Yeah, that's the major flaw of that people in retail are not able to make a large profit.
No, that's super interesting. I think for anybody starting in retail, that's a lovely playbook. And if you go to the foundational basics, you'll be able to crack it. One of the best things I found in our conversations is your understanding of apparel supply chain. I think I invested in 2 companies recently and I spoke to you at length about them. And you were very clear that, okay, the kind of design turnaround periods that you have, the kind of sell-throughs that you have, the way in which you look at, sending stock to your retail stores is all very unique. Talk to us about the parts of the business that a customer does not get to see today, and that you do very well to ensure the amazing customer experience you have?
I think we have a very straightforward philosophy. We are not here to create designs that I like or a designer likes or someone in the team likes. We are here to create designs and products that the particular guest in a particular region of India likes. And we've created our systems around this piece. So every single product that we make is broken down into segments. And we have AI engines that then tell us what are the certain sub-segments across regions that are working. And we take in those learnings and we design accordingly. And that's the sort of design intelligence that we've created internally. And any product that we launch has a much lower rate of failure than anyone in apparel because of this, sort of method of working around this. On the second step, what we do is we also do a lot of innovation. So we innovate also a lot of products and we try them at different locations. And what our system also does is, in case one product doesn't sell in one part of the country but is moving faster in another part of the country, it will automatically take it from store A and put it in store B where it's selling faster. And that's how we look at inventory. So that has allowed us to innovate faster than anyone, ensure guests love the product that we create, and have no dead stock. Now, having no dead stock has two big meanings. The meaning from a business perspective is higher profitability. And the meaning which is even closer to me is that also makes us one of the most sustainable apparel brands out there. Because if you look at apparel, there's a lot of environmental damage that the industry creates. And one of the biggest reasons of that damage is the wasted apparel that you've not been able to sell, and you have to, liquidate it as dead stock. And on top of that, the crazy amount of products you are deep discounting and having to sell. As a brand, Manyavar in its entire lifetime has not sold a single product on discount.
Wow.
Our dead stock has been less than 3-4% every single sort of year lately. And that is what has, created the true magic for this brand, that we are able to continuously innovate in terms of design.
Yeah. I love that. I think I remember the first time you mentioned to me as well, and I was like, shit, these numbers are unheard of, especially for like new age brands, because returns are very high, debt stock is very high, sell through is very low, and that just creates crazy amounts of like problems. And I think that just stands out. And I'm so glad you mentioned the sustainability aspect of it. Like, this is widely known that, like on the labor side, on the supply side, on the stock side, there's so much issue in fashion, in apparel. And it's amazing that you also mentioned data in the middle, right? But I'd love if you can go deeper. In fact, I don't know if you remember the first time we met, the next day you sent me a McKinsey PDF of how Shein uses data and this case study on them, right?
Yeah.
Because you were like, Shein is not a fashion company, it's a data company. Talk to us about like, how do you leverage data at the scale that you operate? And also some of these touch points feel very difficult to contextualize data wise, right? Like, how do you get like store level data in the sense that, there's so many walk-ins, there are these physical components to it that may not get codified. Talk to us about what that means.
I mean, there's a lot of methods of ensuring you have the right data in place. Sure. The first is in terms of, let's say, footfall. Majority of our stores have cameras with artificial intelligence in them to track the number of footfall. I mean, simple metric we're trying to track, and the kind of consumer walking in. So broadly, you can now even tell if the person walking in is a Gen Z guy, a millennial, Gen X. So you can even do that sort of learning.
So you get segmentation. These
You
many
get
people walk
segmentation.
in, these are the kind of people.
Correct.
Okay.
Now the second level is how many people who walked in bought the product and how many didn't. And of those who didn't, what were the segments who did not buy? So then you can look at that data separately. And then you can really analyze the product that was bought to understand how that pin code is functioning.
Yeah. That data you will always have, which is like sell-through data.
Exactly. And that's the base of retail. I think if you try to do too many things on top of this, is just going to add a lot of pressure. But this is what creates the true results. On top of this, we've done a lot of innovation over, let's say we have a lot of people walking in and saying that I've just come here to browse, my wedding is in 6 months. So we'll try to take their phone number to ensure that we can understand their design preference and ensure that when they come back, we've ensured that their taste is maintained in the store. So there's a lot of science to ensuring experience is always improving.
Yeah. On the subsequent side of metrics, right? Like, are there some things that you notice significantly more than the others? I again like remember that you mentioned like GM per square feet is a major thing for me when we were at dinner, right? So what are some of those things, right? Especially when you're also looking at, let's say, 10 years down the line, are you focusing on some of the experiments? How do they work out? Are you focusing on top line, bottom line? You're also like, a public listed entity, which means that there's a lot of scrutiny in falling in place with predictability, what the market is expecting. How does that work for you?
I mean, I think there are two sides of it. One, when we were discussing, that's how I look at other retail companies when I'm evaluating them.
Fair.
So I think there for me, the easiest metric is always, revenue per square feet or gross margin per square feet from a sales perspective to know if this retail business is survivable. And then to get to the bottom line, it all boils down to inventory turns and debt stock that they're doing. And finally, the free cash flow. So that's how I kind of evaluate other retail companies. But in terms of how I look at metrics, I think every night, an hour or so into checking every single category in every single store is like a mantra that I've learned from my dad, and I try to do it as much as he does. But the craziest thing is next morning I can ask him that, let's say this store in Delhi, how many saris, moved out of that store. He would remember the number.
Oh my God.
And sometimes to
That is crazy.
really shock me, he will also say the colors.
Oh wow. To date? Every day right now as well?
Yeah, every day now as well.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
So he's just insane with the raw data crunching power that he has. And yeah, he does it at a phenomenal scale. I try to evaluate it as much as I can. But yeah, I think we've really evolved in terms of the data we need to see and for what sort of reason.
Sure. Oh, that's super interesting. One of the other things that stands out is you have some 15, 16 stores outside of India. And definitely ethnic wear, Indian wear feels like something that India should be taking to the world, right? Like I think it should be a category that we own because it's truly ours. How do you think that pans out in a couple of years? Is that an area of focus? Which other countries are you in? What is the international focus for the brand? Because if anybody has a right to win, it feels like you folks do.
Yeah, so we have about 16 stores across US, UK, UAE, Canada, and all the stores have been doing really well. And if you see the magic, it's brought by Indians globally. And one insight that we've sort of seen, Indians globally celebrate Indian festivals more than Indians in India do.
Really?
And that's just crazy. Like they celebrate
crazy.
everything. And another very interesting fact is 50-60% of our revenue outside comes from Westerners. And that's because these people are being invited to, let's say, a Diwali party or a wedding party that is being hosted by an Indian family.
Sure.
So a lot of those people are being brought to our culture and being showcased that.
No, awesome. This has been very interesting. We've understood multiple aspects to the business. You were also, one of the other things is that, Kedara sort of became an investor. That was the first time you had an outside investor to the company as well for a very small proportion before the IPO. How did that, what was the mindset behind raising PE capital? Kedara is one of the best funds in the country. How did you evaluate that? How did that turn out? What was the result of it?
So I think even back in 2017, when we raised money from Kedara, the business really didn't require capital. The whole thought process behind this was to bring in a partner with their skin in the game that can sort of lead us to the next level of accelerated growth.
Sure.
And they've been genuinely very good partners with us. And we learned a lot from their team and the sort of learnings from across the globe that they brought to the company. So yeah, that was all phenomenal. Sunish, one of the managing partners, he's one of my mentors and continues to be on the board of the company and remains very helpful.
Sure. No, that's super to know. I think a lot of people don't understand fully what the role of a PE investor can be. And in your case, I think I was reading an article as well where they themselves mentioned that capital was not the reason where Manyavar needed us, but hopefully where they also added value and where you also wanted to partner with them was, on the team and taking it to the next level, which
Absolutely.
of course together you have. So that's lovely to know. Vedant, one thing that of course I'm very fascinated to know every time I meet you is like, what does it mean to like lead a public listed company, right? Because it feels like once you have such large responsibility where, people own a piece of your company and they are directly involved, that's a lot of responsibility. What does that mean as a young leader in the business space for you personally? And then how does it effectively manage or lead your, Manyavar style? I'd love to know.
To be very honest, if you have extremely high standards of corporate governance, which we've had for decades now and forever, that will allow you to move into being a public company very quickly. And that's the larger part of things. And at the same time, what has really changed is, apart from having our internal quarterly review meetings, we now have a quarterly earnings call as well, and we have the results period every quarter. Uh, I think the tricky part there was that every single person in this company, I don't know why this is, but most of us are very introverted. So pre-IPO process, to be honest with you, I would have never spoken on a stage, never addressed anyone, never done anything public. Uh, IPO, my dad said he's not going to do any of these public facing things. I have to do most of them. And I was kind of forced to do them. I think it really helped in bursting my bubble, made me a lot more comfortable around a lot of people. And I think that was the most difficult piece of this whole going public process. But everything else felt very natural. And if anything, it's helped us remain even more driven.
Yeah, the responsibility must help, but I wouldn't have guessed you were introverted at any point, by the way, for the record. But that's lovely to know. In terms of your personal experiences, right? Like, I mean, you also now, I know you engage with a couple of new brands as well. You notice how they are doing. What do you think New India is doing differently? And, are there things that you would like to say to younger founders as they begin? Because you've now seen this journey where you've observed and seen the business grow. You're now leading it at scale. What are your learnings for more younger people starting today?
I think one important learning is hustle is very important in the early stages. And at the same time, think of goals from a more longer term aspect. I think I have had a lot of founders who come to meet me say that my goal is 2 years, I want to be a 200 crore company and I want to get listed in 3 years. So I think goals must be measurable and achievable. If you have a larger vision and you run after that, it's going to help you a lot more. I'll give you a small nuanced piece here, like an example. I've met a lot of brands who've realized if they increase their price online and increase the discount, that leads to better sales. But my understanding is in the long term, this will really hurt their brand. But they are all running after their 2 year sales goal, not after their 10-15 year vision. So that is a lot more important, and that 10-15 year achievement satisfaction would hit very different compared to this reaching this 2 year figure.
Sure.
So I think that is more important to run after.
The hustle in the early years, but process and overall long-term thinking is lovely to note. In a world where also a lot of things are driven by funding, etc., there's so much news around it. You've of course seen a bootstrap journey. What do you think, how is the landscape sort of evolving according to your lens outside in? Because, you are at a different scale. Brands which want to raise are at a different scale. But what do you suggest to somebody starting today?
I mean, if you really focus, I think it's not that crazy to have a unit economics profitable brand, unless you're truly trying to disrupt. unless you're trying to create a Zomato back in the day.
Sure.
I'm not referring to those use cases, but most use cases, people can be unit economics profitable from day one,
Especially in brands.
especially in brands. And that creates for the base of a long-term sustainable brand.
Sure.
So I think the proof of concept in itself is having a decently unit economic profitable brand, which can allow you to remain, sort of bootstrapped for a while, unless you think you need funding and you have 10 stores that you've proved that work for you, and now you want to go to 100 stores and you need money.
Sure.
So I
That's
think
a
my recommendation is the base work, if people are able to do bootstrapped, and the super scale after your proof of concept is done, you raise money. I think that probably is what will really work for you. And I'm sure there are a lot of founders out there who don't have the capital even for the early part of it.
Yeah.
Their angel investors are definitely there to support those sort of businesses and use cases.
Sure. You've also, overall seen a bit of, let's say, other brands, right? Like if you had to point out beyond, let's say the Indian celebrations market, which are your, some favorite brands, new age, what comes to mind?
I think from a business perspective, Zudio is absolutely, doing a phenomenal job across India. And one is, of course, the fashion and supply side of it. But also some things, which you only think is tremendous as a retailer is opening 200 large stores in a year is something which is phenomenal. The level of execution that they must be doing to achieve that. So I think that is one brand coming out of India, which is going to be very large. Love the work with Lenskart. I think Lenskart is doing things from a tech angle which are only available in India and are being followed globally, which again is a very new use case that we're seeing. So I definitely see Lenskart as one of those brands that can be from India and be truly global.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think they've just acquired a couple of businesses in Japan, etc. as well. So they are very big.
I think Lenskart as a company is the largest in India, Japan, Thailand, and I think couple of more countries as well, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, and they've absolutely crushed it because it's also like they've beaten a traditional pair in the space. Like you could say Titan was this, so that way, phenomenal. You also have a family office, right? Like which is not, which does a bunch of like you've done Lenskart, Rare Rabbit, etc. How do you think larger brands like yourselves can support more younger companies or companies which are on a growth trajectory like yours?
I think the two examples you gave are not young companies. They are
very
mammoths.
large.
They are giants. I think I definitely just learned from them.
Sure.
So I try to spend a lot of time with people in those companies and try to learn as much as I can.
Sure.
With younger companies as well, there's a lot of learnings for us. Even though the scale might be different, the innovation that younger companies can do, there's a lot to pick from.
Sure.
And then our task is how quickly we can execute at scale. But at the same time, I think what I've seen a lot of the younger people having discussions with my dad, they've at a macro level gone correct with their business models, gotten supply chain right, gotten the basic thinking right. So I think those things have helped some of the younger entrepreneurs, especially after they meet my dad.
Lovely. No, this has been amazing. Towards the end, I want to focus on a couple of more, you aspects of the overall conversation as opposed to the Manyavar aspect of things. You're 25, right? Like we're same age, yes. As a 25-year-old leading this business, are there trade-offs that you have to make, right? And I'm sure there are. What do they seem like? Because life will not be the same for you, and rightly so, right? Like you have more responsibility, etc. What are things that you have to trade off in your life to run the business that you do?
I wouldn't say there are any trade-offs.
Okay.
The way I see it is I was out for many years in my life. So majority of my friends don't live in Calcutta. Right. So while I'm in Calcutta, I'm in hyper-focused work mode. I wouldn't say there's a big difference between my personal and professional life here. And especially because once I actually get to get home after work, that's when my daily review meetings with dad start. So that's the crazy side of things.
Sure.
But Apart from that, I think Calcutta as a city is amazing. People are so nice here. So I think weekends are relatively more relaxed, even though when you're running a company,
So much to do.
there's so much to do. There's always something to do. And one thing which I tell some of the people from uni who are my friends who are still in uni is that, when you had a vacation while you were in university or in school, you have this phase during vacations that your mind is just free. It's not thinking anything. I don't think I felt that after my day one of being at work. So I think that's definitely there, which is crucial to ensure doesn't overload and is managed well.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of traveling running a retail company. So I try to ensure that while I'm visiting the stores, I'm also meeting a lot of my colleagues there, our partners there. So this business has a lot of hustle to it, but also comes with a lot of fun, I would say. So I enjoy meeting new people across the country through the business itself also.
Sure. Yeah. No, we were at a cricket match with your team.
Yeah.
So that's a great example of
Yeah.
saying how you can combine business and pleasure.
Yeah.
And that, of course, stands out. One thing that I ask most guests on the show is, how would your friends describe you? I'd love to know that about you.
That's a hard question. I think my friends would describe me as a nice but really hectic person.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is.
I partly agree. In the amount I've gotten to know you, I agree. Like very kind and nice, but definitely very busy to get hold of.
No, but like not busy in that sense, but hectic in the sense that I think if we do something, like we have to be hardcore about it. Like I can't just lay and chill sometimes.
Yeah.
Like just want to do something all the time, and there's just a lot of hyperactive energy that needs to be taken out.
No, that's true. I can imagine. One of the other things is, to be almost like, I don't know how to phrase this, so I'll probably just go ahead and say this. To be born in this family, with this business, has some amount of luck, right? How do you evaluate the privilege versus luck side of your life?
I mean, see, it's a very tricky question, but I think to be born in the family is all luck in some sense. But how you take this on as a responsibility, I don't think I've achieved anything in life yet. But I hope in the future, maybe in a decade or so, I would have done something to further elevate things from here on and truly build on what has been built. And then I can say that it's a little bit of privilege and luck.
Yeah.
So I think I'll work towards the privilege, but for now, it's mostly luck.
Fair. What does privilege mean for you? Like, or what does that general success? You've seen I'm not stereotyping, but in a business family, you've seen like comfort, you've seen business, you've grown up in a great household. It exists, right? And now you're pushing the boundary of what more can exist. So what does like the sense of like, what is success to you? I know this is a very philosophical question, but I'd love your answer for it.
I'll have a little bit of a cliche one here, because for me, success is really defined by what my dad has achieved. So one side is professional. So he built a multi-billion-dollar business. But the more important side of it is, as a son, he was always there for me. And I'm pretty sure my mom would say that as a husband, he was always there for her.
Wow.
But the craziest thing is, he was not only there for just the two of us, but also he was there for all his sisters, his parents, even some of the extended family members. He hustled in the first 10 years of his life, but then he earned so much time for himself that, he likes to tell people that I define success by the time I've earned for myself. And that time was all put into helping others in the family. That time was put into, helping me grow up. And I think that wholesome growth and wholesome success that I saw with him is what really defines success for me as well.
I love that. All of what we've spoken about is the rosy intellectual side of things, what is the thing that you wouldn't otherwise share? Like, what are things that aren't so great about not your life, but like maybe the business, maybe the tough things?
I think being one of the only like leading company in the industry is a very lonely space to be in.
Sure.
You don't have people to talk to. You don't have people to vent out to about the things you're irritated by. So I mean, definitely there's that side of uh, the whole thing.
I mean, I was just trying to understand like what are the struggle to nahi, matlab, what are things that don't get spoken of enough, right? And I think that way it's good to, yeah, I mean, like the space on the top is always lonely.
Yeah.
So
I
yes.
think one more thing there is that I've seen a lot of my friends also who've started to work, and I think definitely if you want to get into your family business, you can't start after university. I think that is almost a recipe for failure in my opinion.
Sure.
And the reason I say this is because a lot of people enter with the mindset that they are the boss, but without the knowledge. So either you gain the knowledge since you're young and work towards that. So when you enter, you still have some relative knowledge. Or on the other hand, uh, you walk in as an intern and you grow yourself. This is how it happens in some of the very much larger families who've cracked this code.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think, and as you mentioned at the start, right, for you, what played out in your advantage is dinner table conversations, and from early on, you saw the business.
Correct.
Yeah, that's super helpful. If I had to ask you to condense like very important business learnings from your father, what would those be? Just very specifically.
I think he's hyper focused on getting the macro points right.
Okay.
I think what I've seen is even with me when I was new into the business, micro points playing a much larger role in our brain and us spending too much time trying to fix those very small aspects which actually have relatively no significance. I think if each entrepreneur, especially the young ones, just focus on those macro pieces, just forget about all the micro ones. If you get the macros right, you will definitely succeed
In the long run.
in the long run. Even today, I think in business, if it's not a macro point, he's not interested to that extent.
Very interesting. I like the articulation of it. I think smaller things, just like micro things, help us get more instantly gratified, which is why like we all chase them in some shape or form. But that's a very important business learning. Wow, this has been really cool. I'm thinking of what all have I missed, but I think one of the final points that I want to like understand about you is you seem like you also like, although I discussed, how you with friends, etc. as well, you seem like you have a lot of things managed, balanced, right? What are things that you came into the business not knowing at all and you've had to learn really, really quickly? I'd love to know that. Like, or things that you were completely wrong about. Ki ye to pata hai, but I got them completely wrong.
I think I underestimated the amount of nuances there are in executing projects in a company that is already scaled. I think that was one big miss from my end in the early days. Let me give you one example, right? Let's say today you decide that online orders will move to becoming omni-channel orders. That means even our stores will ship alongside our warehouse. Now, one side is enabling the tech. So you get the tech team to do that. But now there's a whole certain set of algorithm that defines delivery date in your website. So you have to update that algorithm. Now, there's a trade-off between this algorithm making the website slower by a second or keeping it at the same speed. Let's say you go forward with that. Now there's the store and the person you have to ensure they are incentivized. So at scale, any small thing just takes in too much effort to deliver and execute. And I think that there's a whole learning behind this where I used to think this I could do in a day, but takes maybe a month.
Got it. It's interesting. We were just talking about, micro things, and then we spoke about macro versus nuances. So yeah, no, I think execution there's so much, especially at your scale. But this has been super fun, Vedant. I think to end, I usually ask a looking back question, which is to say that if you could go back in time, and let's say, go back to the day, you came back from uni and you were going to officially take charge of the company and, spearhead many initiatives. If you could go back to that day and tell yourself a couple of things, right? This is to just put things into perspective, what you've learned over the last 3-4 years. What would that look like?
Definitely, instead of starting 10 new things, focus on just 3.
Sure.
That would be one big learning. Execute and then move on to the next 3. The second would be if I could spill some of the secrets I've learned over the last 3 years.
Sure.
Just tell myself about all of those.
Sure.
Maybe the brand strategy pieces I've taken a lot of learning on how to progress. If I could tell myself that secret, that would save me a year's worth of work. So do that.
Sure.
And maybe even teach my old self a little bit about hiring. Because like I was mentioning, I made mistakes, and quite a few of them in the early days of my life. And the thing which we kind of didn't talk about yet is my dad is a crazy human in the sense, when I joined, he would let me take decisions that he should have definitely not let me take. So he would allow me to hire someone without him meeting that person. When we were getting into roadshows, which is a big part of the IPO process, before the first meeting, he in his head already knew for months that he's not going to do 95% of the meetings. He called me like maybe an hour before the first meeting was to start to tell me, Vedant, you're going to be the one leading these meetings.
Wow.
And that was just a crazy experience to just walk into a roadshow and to start talking about the company and answering all kinds of questions. And at that time, I think I was 22 or 21.
Wow.
So that was crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, actually. How does it feel to have a stock named on you, by the way? I should have started with this, no? Yeah, I mean, it's literally called Vedant Fashion. So, yeah.
I mean, we were both actually born in the same month, same year. So I'm not sure if I'm named after the company or the company is named after me.
I'm sure it's
See, to be honest, that part is still fine. I still remember in the early days, everyone's password used to be Vedant at 123. So those things used to be funnier.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, this should have been a good icebreaker actually at the start. But no, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad we did this. Like I was telling you last night, it was almost, I was going through your quarterly earnings call to just like get my research better. It was so funny in my head that, okay, I know this person. I'm going to like host him tomorrow. But it's been a absolute pleasure. I think I've always enjoyed my conversations with you, and this has been no different. I get to learn so much, and what you're building with the multiple brands that you run, and how you're championing Indian culture is just so amazing. And in this conversation, I'm just like going out much stronger. I love the focus on detail, right? I think, like I was telling you in the middle when we took a brief break, that very thoughtful about the words that you've chosen, and it shows in the company you're building. So thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad we did this. Cheers. Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.